The question is that the bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Kooyong, the Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. It's my pleasure to follow my good friend, the member for Bennelong, in speaking on the Appropriation Bill number 1, 2014-2015. As I rise, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, we look at the debate in Australia at the moment and in recent weeks, and it's been preoccupied with attacks on both the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and their wives and their children, and a wink here and a cigar there and a harmless dance or a harmless song have been blown completely out of proportion and have been thrown into the centre of debate, when really the media should have treated it as it was and as it is and left it on its margins. Because in the days after this budget, we should have been debating the key themes and the messages and what this budget is all about. It's about setting up Australia for a more prosperous future, where our children and our grandchildren will be better off. Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, for me in this budget there are two key themes. The first theme is about paying back Labor's debt, and the second theme is about putting in place measures and initiatives that boost Australia's economic growth, productivity and, most importantly, jobs. Let's take this first issue of paying back Labor's debt. Treasury's numbers are instructive. Under this budget, over the next 10 years, nearly $300 billion of Labor's debt will be repaid, and nearly $16 billion a year in interest will be saved. Now, we have to put in context Labor's $667 billion worth of debt and record deficits, the biggest this country has ever seen. Because when we left office at the end of 2007, there was zero government debt. There was a $20 billion surplus and $50 billion in the bank. Real wages had increased by more than 20% and millions of new jobs had been created. That was the proud fiscal legacy of John Howard, Peter Costello and their entire government. And their staff. But Labor were bequeathed this golden fiscal legacy and destroyed it in a matter of years. And as a result, we have had to introduce a series of tough measures in this budget which will see nearly $300 billion repaid. I mean, right now, as the member for Bendigo and the member for Longman know, Labor's interest bill that they left us is $1 billion a month. That's all of Gonski. That's all of the NDIS. That's an East-West link or a WestConnex project. That is just the interest bill on Labor's debt. So, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, that's the first job of this budget, is to pay back Labor's debt. The second element of this budget is to boost economic growth, jobs and productivity. And we have done that in three ways in this budget. The first way is by a record investment in infrastructure, particularly roads. $50 billion of the state of the Commonwealth's money, including $5 billion which will incentivise the states to recycle their own infrastructure to sell it, to upgrade it, to ensure that they have the best infrastructure available for their constituents. In total, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, $125 billion worth of infrastructure will be kick-started by measures in this budget, creating tens of thousands of jobs right around the country. The second measure in this budget, designed to boost productivity, growth and jobs, is a record investment in education, innovation and research. A $20 billion medical research future fund, which will be the envy of the world, and the member for Bendigo will know will be the envy of her constituents. Because we understand that Australia has a natural strength. Australia has a natural strength in medical research, and I know in Victoria, my home state, the member for Bendigo's home state, we have great research institutions like the Burnet Institute, Walter and Eliza Hall. In New South Wales, there are many too. These will be the direct beneficiaries out of the $20 billion Medical Research Future Fund. For the first time in this budget, we are giving Commonwealth support to people who go to TAFE or take a sub-bachelor degree or a diploma, and we are giving up to $20,000 in a HEX type of a loan to apprentices. Because we say to the constituents of Australia, if the Commonwealth is prepared to support people who go to university, it should also be prepared to support people who undertake an apprenticeship. And 20% of that will not have to be repaid if they complete their apprenticeship. So we are boosting support for people who take sub-bachelor degrees and diplomas and go to TAFE. We are giving greater support for people who undertake apprenticeships, and we are investing in world-leading medical research. The third element of that productivity, jobs, growth piece in this budget relates to the efforts we have underway to boost workforce participation for the under 30s, the over 50s and for women. Because for those who are under 30 and have the capacity to work, they should not be on welfare. They should be earning or learning. For the over 50s who have been on welfare for more than 6 months, we will give an incentive to employers up to thousands of dollars, $10,000, to actually take these people on board and give them a job where they become net contributors to our society. And for women, we have an appropriate and far-sighted paid parental leave scheme, which will ensure it takes the place of Labor's Mickey Mouse paid parental leave scheme, which will hopefully keep many, many more women in the workforce after they have had children. So, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, they're the two main measures in this budget: paying back Labor's debt and boosting productivity, growth and jobs. Now, if you read the Commission of Audit, if you listen to the International Monetary Fund, or you listen to the Parliamentary's Independent Budgetary Office, you know that business as usual is not an option. Australia cannot continue on its current trajectory of spend, 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 instead of save, save, save. So that is why we have these measures in this budget. I want to quote to you the Commission of Audit, because its diagnosis was alarming. It found, quote, "the fiscal situation is far weaker than it should be and the long-term outlook is ominous due to an unsustainable increase in expenditure commitments." Now, this problem of our expenditure commitments, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, is being compounded by the fact we have an ageing population. Today, the number of people who are working for every retired Australian is 5 to 1. By 2050, it falls to just 2.7 to 1. That is what compels us to take action today. Now, I just want to go through the 5 most discussed elements in this budget and to answer the claims of those opposite to say why we need these changes. So take, for example, the Medicare co-payments. The Medicare co-payments...
Members, the division has been called for in the House. The proceedings are suspended to enable honourable members to attend the division. The proceedings will resume when the Chair of the Federation Chamber is resumed at the conclusion of the division or subsequent divisions. Members, the call remains with the member for Kooyong.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. As I was saying, if we look at 5 of the most controversial or discussed and debated aspects of this budget, you know, the Medicare co-payments, pensions, university deregulation, school and hospital funding, and some of the other areas, what you could have thought by the hue and cry from the Labor Party is that we have taken away the safety net altogether. Far from it. So if you look at the Medicare co-payments, Australia is following down the path of other European countries, Scandinavian countries, New Zealand and the Americas in having a co-payment of this kind. In fact, there is a limit, a cap of 10 visits on the co-payment for concession card holders. And in Australia, there are more than 8 million concession card holders, as well as people under the age of 16 will be limited to a $7 co-payment for just their 10 visits. If you look at pensions, pensions will go up twice each and every year. And if you wind the clock back to 1908 when the pension first came in, the life expectancy for a 15-year-old male in 1908 was 64. He never was going to get the pension. Today, the life expectancy for a 15-year-old male in Australia is around 80 years of age, and for a woman, 85. It's a much different circumstance, and this needs to be reflected when it comes to pensions. If you look at university deregulation, you could be forgiven for thinking the students were paying every dollar up front. In fact, they don't pay a dollar up front. They only start to pay back their HELP or HECS loan when their income reaches $50,000. And what is more, our new measures will ensure that 1 in every $5 taken by a university as a result of deregulation, that money can be put back into Commonwealth scholarships to help those from regional areas and others of lower socio-economic advantage. When you look at health and school funding going forward, rather than being cut, over the next 4 to 5 years it will go up 37% for school funding and 40% for hospital funding, a significant increase. And then when you look at other aspects of this policy like the earn or learn for under 30s, there are important carve-outs to ensure that if a young person does not have the capacity to work for more than 30 hours, or they're the principal carer, or that they are a parent, or they've got a disability, then they are not going to be subject to these new earn or learn requirements. And then if you listen to the state premiers and the chief ministers talking about losing $80 billion, you wouldn't have known that in fact the states are going to benefit by a total of $60 billion over the coming 10 years. An extra $60 billion in Commonwealth money flowing to the states over the next 10 years. Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, we had to take the tough measures in this budget because Labor bequeathed us a fiscal mess. Unemployment increased on their watch. Youth unemployment, as the member for Longman knows, went from 19 to 27% under Labor. And we saw a fall in productivity, and Australia's economic growth lagged the world. We are determined to turn that around. This budget is part of a broader economic narrative which includes deregulation, industrial relations reform, tax reform, getting rid of the carbon tax, getting rid of the mining tax, and changes to reviews into competition and to financial systems. Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, this is a good budget, this is an important budget, and I commend this bill to the House.